I am Danica.
And I am Myra, and this is a Black Women Healing Podcast.
A space to discuss mental wellness.
A space to dive into soul care and vulnerability.
Here, we will support you on your journey as you focus on your healing,
while also giving you the work along the way.
Welcome to Black Women Healing Podcast. I am here to announce that our book, Let's Heal, a workbook designed for Black women with various modalities by your co-hosts Danica and Myra, is now at a storefront. And so the storefront is Urbana Goods. It's a community store that brings an upgraded experience of connecting with the community with small crafting gatherings and workshops and supporting other local businesses by housing and selling their merchandise, such as us. And they even sell some of your typical items from the local convenience store. Like, y'all, I literally bought some body butter, hair products, and a cute purse, all from this store, just to give you a little example. So when you have some time, check out Urbana Goods. It's located in Gardena, California. The actual address is 1756 West El Segundo, Gardena, California, 90249. You can put it in your GPS, whatever you need to do, but go ahead and make your way there and check us out. Hey, y'all, we are back with another episode of Black Women Healing Podcast, and we are super excited for this guest. I feel like we've been waiting a long time, so it's finally here. And so before we get to introducing the guest, we usually start off with some sort of segment beforehand. And so lately we've been doing this, like reading a quote and then just doing a little reflections afterwards. So a quote that I'm thinking of today is... if I can find it. All right. So this one right here, I haven't heard of this person, but maybe you all have. But it says, "You can fall, but you can rise also," by Angelique Kidjo. I think I'm pronouncing that right. What do you all think about this quote?
The quote is, "You can rise, but you can fall also."
You can fall, but you can rise also.
That's strange.
I don't know that I like this quote, but what it sounds like it's saying is, no matter how many mistakes you take, you can try again. And I think that's why I don't like it, because it sounds basic. Sorry, I'm just being honest. It doesn't, for whoever likes it, you like it, but for me, it's just not doing nothing. Sorry.
You said that's by Angelique. What's her name?
Kidjo.
Oh, okay. I think that's a musician, actually. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. But I think the quote, for me at least, it means that you have essentially two options really in life. You could either do what it takes to succeed. Well, first, since the fall comes before the rise, it's like even if you fail, you could you could not do anything and just keep, failing and everything, but also you can do what it takes and keep on your path to success. So that's kind of what it means to me, at least.
Yeah. No, most definitely. It is pretty simple. I agree. It's simple. Sometimes simple's good though. Right. Literally, it's only so much you can get from it. It's like,
I just think I'm tired of quotes that are talking about like making mistakes and trying again. Like, I feel like I've heard that so much.
Yeah.
Give me something else. Like, it's not really, you just told me, like, I got another chance. Okay. Give me something else.
Yeah. True. But so that was our little reflections portion. But so today, you all, we're going to be talking about Black masculinity and overall just our guests, different things that they're doing right now. And so to get started, I'm going to introduce our guests. So Omo Pastor is a storyteller and artist based in Atlanta, Georgia. She is a published storyteller of the African diaspora who uses various artistic mediums to heal and empower others through authentic stories, with a focus on the intersection of gender, sexuality, emotions, and history within the context of being of African descent in contemporary society. She aims to merge the past and present to create a fluid future where Black people can heal and thrive. Her passion, hustle, has expanded her messages across an array of platforms. Her work has been issued in several publications, and she has been featured in various magazines, podcasts, and film festivals. So, welcome our guest. Hey, Omo.
Hello, how are y'all doing?
We're doing good. And so this is getting straight into it. What sparked your interest in Black masculinity?
So for me, it was really just because I grew up around a lot of boys that were at least in my family. Like I have girls in my family, right? As far as like my cousins, when we were growing up, they're young women now, but my age group, it was mainly my cousins, like my guy cousins. So we all used to play basketball a lot. So I played a lot of sports. And as I like progressed, I realized I had way more guy friends than girlfriends. All right. So that really sparked my interest in Black masculinity, because I was really encountering that energy more frequent than the opposite energy necessary on my walk in life. So I actually went to a conference in Tennessee, and I met this guy, and he was just telling me about his story, how he was homeless, and then he ended up getting a full ride to Ohio State University for academics. And we just had a really long conversation, and I asked him, if I could take pictures of him and everything of that sort as we were talking. So that really made me start to see, like, there's different stories behind just Black men as a whole. Like, even just off rip, I know a lot of people tend to have their own preconceived notions about Black men. So I felt like, okay, as a storyteller, how can I shift the narrative? How can I add to the narrative? And how can I create discourse surrounding Black masculinity that differentiates between how the world sees them and how they see themselves, as well as how they create a balance between their masculinity and femininity as well. So that's really what sparked it. And because also, like, I realized I was able to really connect on a deeper level with the different guys that the different men that I came in contact with. So I actually ended up just becoming like a therapist to a lot of them. So that really was what had me like, all right, let's run and see if we could create some dopeness with this.
Yeah, and then I'm curious about how you define Black manhood.
So how I define Black manhood, I don't really know, to be honest. Like, I feel like for me at least, there's no true definition of what Black manhood looks like, because there's no universal Black man, right? So I don't really believe in like it having a definition, to be honest. I think it's whatever feels right to that Black man who identifies as a Black man, that individual who identifies as a Black man, like how they choose to show up in life, how they choose to present themselves. But I would say I do go against what society has portrayed as Black manhood, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm curious, in the conversations about when you're talking about Black masculinity, does femininity come up at all in these conversations, and what does that look like?
Of course. That is, and it's so crazy because, like, I remember I was doing a shoot just recently too, and I was telling this guy, I think he was maybe in his early 20s. And we were just randomly talking. I don't even know how we ended up in this conversation, but I was telling him, I was like, something about like operating in your femininity, and he got so offended, and he was like, oh, I'm not feminine, like I'm a man, whatever. And I'm just like, you're a human being, right? And you were made by a woman and a man, right? So either which way, regardless if you're a man or a woman, you have both feminine energy and masculine energy. And then we ended up having a conversation. I was like, do you even know what feminine energy is? Like, and he was just reiterating what the rhetoric around femininity has been like over centuries about, oh, soft, just softness, nurturing, blah blah blah. But I started to explain to her, I was like, one thing people tend to forget is femininity goes beyond just what we quote unquote say women should look like, right? Or behave like. It's deeper than that. When you create anything as a creative, when you create, you're operating in your feminine energy. And he didn't understand that, because obviously what he was taught from young was like, oh, a man is this way, a man is that way. If you're masculine, this is how you behave. You operate like more in an aggressive manner, a logical manner. You don't show your emotions. And that discourse has like really trapped and pigeonholed a lot of guys that I come in contact with, because they don't understand that there's things that they even do on a everyday basis that is them operating in their femininity. So I've had numerous conversations about that. Like, I often just I had to send my guy friend like, all right, this is the difference between masculinity and femininity. There's nothing wrong with operating in your femininity, because you're a human being. That creates the balance within you. So yeah, that has shown up multiple times.
I just had to ask because I'm always in conversation with my clients about them wanting to be in touch with both and sometimes feeling stuck in one. Mm-hmm. So I hope that they're listening to this and they're getting something out of it too, to help them think. As we're talking and as I read through your book and read more about you, I get from it that a lot of healing is happening. And so I'm curious for you, as you reflect, in what ways have you found your writing and even your photography work to welcome healing into your life?
So for my writing and photography, it definitely has been an avenue of healing for me, simply because I'm able to confront certain issues or certain relationships that I've had. So even with gays as a whole, there were pieces that I created, that I wrote, that actually were talking about past relationships with an individual. And also, there's an image of a guy that I was actually dating in there as well too. That correlates with this specific piece, and that piece spoke to just how I tend to always come in contact with men who struggle with seeing me for who I am. Right? There's so much of a generalization of like, oh, this is what women want, this is what women need, this is how women operate, versus like, this is how behaves, this is what Alma Pastor needs, this is what Alma Pastor, like, how she will react if I behaved in a certain manner. Versus, so there was a major struggle with just like being an individual when it came to dealing with certain guys, majority of guys in my life, so that actually, writing those pieces actually presented me with the opportunity to confront that, and for me to like open up and see, okay, this is what I'm struggling with when it does come to dating men. And also just realizing how there has hardly been a safe space for me to truly express myself. And that's what the writing component gave me. And then just even like coupling it with the photographs, it also helped me to show myself, and as well as like whoever's reading it, how I do see men and the different types of men that I've encountered. So it definitely was able to it became an avenue for people to see like, it's not just one general type of man that I tend to interact with. It's a various there's a variety of men that I interact with. So the idea that, okay, I'm not getting this safe space that I want is not just coming from one type. It's like, okay, this is a continuous thread that's happening across the board. So yeah, so it definitely helped me in that regards, and just open my eyes, as well as I hope it will open other people's eyes in that regard too.
So what I'm hearing you say is because this is really intriguing for me. What I'm hearing you say is you have the reflection of being able to identify that some of the men you've come across see you as this is what women want, or this is what their previous girlfriends maybe have want. And so not being able to see what you want personally. I hear this all the time. So I'm curious, you did like you're writing around it. It helps you to process it. But I'm wondering, like, if a friend were to come to you and say the same thing and they didn't have access to your book, right? Because we have our audience, what would maybe be something you tell them to get them to reflect and like dig a little bit deeper? Because what you're doing is very powerful, but not a lot of people can do that, to be able to separate the two.
That's a good question. So for to have a friend to dig a little deeper in regards to just having them understand the difference between what a whole collective wants versus like them as individual, just to clarify your question.
What you would tell a friend who's like struggling to see that they're, because oftentimes when I talk with women, they'll say like, this man is not giving me what I want. But in your reflection, it's because you're able to see that they're just seeing you as this is what women want and not recognizing your needs. So being able to help them realize like it's because they're not really seeing what you need, and that's not on you. Because oftentimes women feel like, oh, it's a me problem that they don't see what I need. When in actuality, not having the reflection that you had of this is what they feel like I want, and I probably should express myself.
Right. So I guess like for me, like what I often tend to even just tell people in general about like who struggle with that is it's like really one, obviously having a conversation with their partner or such and such, or whoever they're dealing, whoever they're having that issue with, right? Because not, if they feel like their needs are not being met, first thing obviously is having a conversation like what exactly is not being met, right? And how is your partner showing up for you that, that doesn't really coincide with how you need your partner to show up for you, right? So because sometimes like people are just, they don't know that, okay, all women don't want this or all men don't want this,
Exactly.
right? So they're ignorant to the fact, and ignorant in the sense of like lack of knowledge, legit lack of knowledge, that to the fact that that this person, it operates in a different space than what they're used to. So I do tell people often like have a conversation, like it, the first thing is to have that conversation, but also having it in an open space, like with an open mind, versus like coming with your preconceived notions, like, okay, this person is going to take it this way, this person is going to go that way. And you may be right, honestly, but at the end of the day, if you do come to your partner and say, okay, look, this is what I need, this is what you're doing, that, and this is how you're not technically meeting my standards or my needs, how can we really address that as partners, right? And then I think what you said earlier was actually really positive in regards to like just not really being able to address that issue, because I think there's so much rhetoric around what relationships should look like, what men want, what women want, especially with social media now. So it's like people struggle, like people go to social media to get their advice, when it's like, you can't tell me what's going to work in my relationship. Like that's the generalization. And I think because individuals tend to generalize, it's like, oh, women can't be satisfied, or men want this, men can't be satisfied, all of that, versus like really addressing their individual partner. Like, yeah.
Thank you for that. I just feel like we need to dive a little bit deeper, because I feel myself having these conversations in so many different areas. I feel like we needed to like get some attention to it. And also like one of the key things that you said that you did was that separation of not thinking about yourself as like the issue, but rather this is what I'm noticing with this person and this is what I'm noticing with me. So I appreciated that.
For sure.
Absolutely. Really quickly, because I just realized that this is not in our questions. Your name, Omo Pastor, where did this come from, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, for sure. So it actually means pastor's child in Yoruba. So I'm Nigerian from the Yoruba tribe, and actually my parents are pastors, right? So I decided to go with that just because it will create a paradox. Because most people are gonna be like, oh, I'm a pastor. They'll think, oh, church, whatever, Christian, blah blah blah. But I'm totally the opposite of that. Like, just even the conversations that I have, my mentality, how I think, how I operate, my spiritual beliefs and practices definitely are different from what people will automatically assume as a pastor's child.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I knew it had some context to it.
Oh
I
yeah.
didn't want to miss it. Like you just said, people are like, oh, I'm a pastor. Like, what does this even mean? So
Right.
it's nice to have some context to it. But so this question kind of tackles if you ever have received pushback from tackling Black masculinity and like the way it affects Black womanhood, girlhood, boyhood across the diaspora. That's a loaded question. But pretty much just like, because when I think of it, I'm like, oh, this could create some different controversies around it, or just different ways people think. So have you received any, and how have you handled it?
I of course I've received like pushback. And I would say thankfully it was not really a lot of conversations, it was more so like a building on or trying to get understanding for at least for me, that's first of all, that's why I created the project, because I wanted to spark conversation about what black masculinity has looked like across in America, throughout the diaspora and such, right? So I would say that just even receiving pushback, it was mainly like conversations in regards to, how can you essentially write something on a topic that you haven't really experienced, but that goes into the point where it's like, but I have experienced it though. I've experienced it on the end of receiving. Like, you show, if I have if I'm dealing with you as a Black man, I'm receiving your energy, right? What energy are you coming and bringing towards me as I deal with you, as we go through life and such, right? So I've received pushback in that regards, but I've also received pushback in a sense of like, there's a specific space within the book that talks about the relationship between men, like between men with each other, right? And it talks about like how this like how fathers tend to just, it was something that I wrote in regards to fathers not really accepting their sons who appear more to operate more in their femininity than their masculinity, and as well as like the relationships between just men in regards to, how just like men who tell other men who I love you, and not having to say no homo with it, so just even that conversation was one that I've received in regards to like getting guys to understand, like, you a grown, especially when you reach a certain level, you're a grown man. You're a grown man. You do not need to be saying no homo after telling another man I love you, or telling another man, oh, you look handsome, or that type of thing. And for me, like, it has generated great conversations, because I really start to see like how some guys really think, like how they truly think, how they process relationships with each other. And I remember one of my guy friends, he was telling me about how he actually struggled with his, just within his own group of friends, mainly guys, just really being able to open up to each other, right? It was never anything, when he, and as he reflected, like, it was their relationship was nothing really substantial, in a sense where it's like, oh, we're actually growing from this. It was more so like typical what we see on social media, just foolishness in regards to just playing women, talking about our sex life and all of that stuff, right? But he had to really reflect and think about what does he want to gain from his friendship with guys, right? How, and then even just having the conversations about guys who don't hold each other accountable, because we were talking about that, like how a lot of guys don't tend to hold their other guy friends accountable, like especially if they have they're in a relationship with somebody and they're cheating, right? Or, you know, and it's like, bro, like, you doing too much. That conversation is not, and he realized that, you know, that's something that he has to, you know, start thinking about as he gets older and his builds more relationship with guys.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I mean, it's a lot that you just said to unpack for sure. But I think that I love the fact that even as you talk, I'm noticing the language that you use, you're saying like some Black men, right? You're not saying all, right? You can't speak for, I mean, like you said, technically you can't speak specifically for any Black man, but you can talk about your experience.
Right.
Which is, I mean, that's exactly what you have done. Like you just say, even how it got started is because of your experience with Black men. And so I love that you can like really center on that. Like, this is where I'm coming from. And it sounds like you've been able to handle the pushback pretty well.
Oh yeah, for sure. I like conversations. Sometimes I do get passionate, but it has made for great conversations, and even helped me to gain a better understanding. Like, okay, I can understand why you think like that, or I can understand how you see such and such topic. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Have you noticed an increase in Black men and Black women photography since you have been in the field, or Black people in general?
I would say yeah, but I think to be honest, I've noticed more of an increase in people creating content with photography. But when it comes to really being an artist with photography, then I wouldn't even really say yes to that, to be honest. Like, it's very much a content creation field that I see. Like, it has tremendously grown, like, for people utilizing photography as a way to create content, which is cool, you know. But I think people should just stick to calling themselves content creators instead, you know. So yeah.
As we wrap up, I'm curious if you can tell our audience a little bit about your book. So that way, because we like talking about it, but not really. So can you tell them just like a little bit about your book and the inspiration behind it?
Oh, for sure. So my book Gaze is it's a book filled with poetry, prose, and photographs. And I connected with 3 other phenomenal Black women writers that I met randomly in different spaces. And they wrote great pieces, and I also wrote pieces as well for the book. So Gaze really talks about is broken up into 2 parts. So the first part just talks about the dysfunction within Black women and Black men relationships, whether it's relationships with your fathers, relationship with your brothers, relationship with your sons, or even just how you like the thoughts behind raising Black sons, as well as like relationship with partners. And then the second part goes into more of the gratitude and the beauty behind within these relationships. So there's a lot of that second part is more so filled with love. So I broke it up into two pieces, 2 sections, simply because I feel like to get to the love part, the healing part, you have to address the issues, right? So that dysfunction part talks about just the issues, the pain, the experiences that we as Black women, specifically the writers, have experienced in dealing with Black men. And then the second part talks about the beauty, the love, the healing that we've experienced in dealing with Black men. So I did it like that as well, so that there's not one so there wasn't a biased approach to it, right? So if I'm talking about the negative, I'm also talk about the positive, you know, because it's not all negative with Black men. It's definitely a lot of positive as well too, at least from my experience. So yeah, so that's what Gaze talks about. It discusses, and it also, I specifically tell people, it comes from the lens of Black women. So it's not to say this is we're speaking for the voice of Black men. No, this is literally our own experience, and this is from our own lens, and how we see and view and what we've dealt with in regards to dealing with Black men and how they appear when they interact with us, as well as what they view and also how we view Black masculinity.
That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. As we wrap up, we always ask our guests if they have any takeaways for our listeners, and it can be anything. Do you have any takeaways for our listeners?
As far as takeaways, I think the key thing, just based off of the conversation, is really like to really learn how to differentiate between the general and individuals. I think people need to start paying attention to their partners, and whoever they're dealing with. It could be your friend or anything, and really start seeing, okay, this is what this person doesn't like versus like this is what this group of people don't like. I think that would make a great start to just building better relationships and finding a balance within your relationships, and just being able to build more healthy relationships if we begin looking at people as individuals versus as a collective.
Completely agree. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Omo, for joining us today. I think this is going to be a really good episode. I feel like we haven't tackled this, and I think we for sure going to have some more follow-ups with this. So we thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, y'all. Appreciate it.